Good evening, afternoon, morning. I don't know where you're at in the world, but good day to everyone. Thanks for joining us again. This is Heath Robinson with Topaz Labs, and I am more than thrilled to be back again with Rad Drew to present creating highly stylized images in Topaz Studio.
Well, thanks a lot for the introduction, and wow, thanks for being here, everyone. This has been a while since I've been here with Heath at Topaz, but I'm really excited to be here today. Today might be a little bit different. I know those of you who know me may know me as an iPhone photographer. I mean, I've been a photographer for a long time, but in 2010 I started shooting with the iPhone. And one of the things about it that I liked was the ability to add textures and filters and blend images and mask and all those things. And so I was doing that heavily on the iPhone since about 2010. And then a few years ago, I discovered Topaz. And lo and behold, we have this incredible, powerful app that will let us do a lot of the same kinds of things that I was doing with iPhone images. And so that was really what attracted me to Topaz in the first place. Well, now I'm using Topaz to work on my Fuji images and my infrared images, and even sometimes we'll pull in an iPhone image or two. So today, what I wanted to do was share with you some of the things that I like to do with Topaz that might look a lot like something that you might see coming out of an iPhone, but just with bigger images and higher resolution. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and get started here. We'll be looking at several images today. This first one is an image that I shot out in the Palouse, one of the areas that I do workshops once or twice a year. And I wanted to turn this into a painting with some heavily textured look. So this is what the image looked like when I first brought it in. And while we were waiting here today, I did a little bit of cropping. I used the crop feature over here and cropped it down to a 16 by 19. And then I also used the content aware to take out some of these signs and these colors that I didn't want in the image. And so it looks like this right now. Before I start making edits, I just want to do a quick go around here of the interface that I'm using. It's hard to believe that it's been almost a year since Topaz Studio rolled out. Heath, when did Topaz Studio first hit the?
We started our official open beta, I believe, in March, or late March, the end of March, and we actually
Yeah.
released at the 1st of June last year. So we're coming right up on
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I thought we were coming up on a year. It's hard to believe. So I still think of this as the new Topaz interface. And so I know it is still new to a lot of people, but what we're looking at now is the Topaz editor. It's a free editor. You can download it without having to spend any money at all. And then you can add some things into it, to effects and adjustments that make it even more powerful. Um, it works as a standalone. You can run it through other apps like uh, Photoshop and so on, but you right now I'm running it as a freestanding app. Over here on the left are all of the effects that Topaz has created. That you've got a whole host of different effects, and we're adding new ones all the time to this collection over here. Um, Over on the right, we have our adjustments, the image adjustments, and if I click on this button right here, you can see that there are just a host of different, I forget how many there are, of the different adjustments you can make to the images. Now, if you download the Topaz Studio, all of these first, I think 11 that are above this line come with the basic app. So there's a lot you can do just with the basic app and downloading it. Along the bottom here is our tray where our images reside, and all of these can be, with these little arrows, you can click and hide those so you have more real estate to work with if you choose. Part of the basic Topaz Studio also has these adjustments and tools here. You have a crop tool, a healing tool, there's lens correction that will correct for your camera. If you have any major brand of camera, it will be, it's already in the system. You can also mask globally, and then you have this little more button that lets you rotate and flip your images if you like. So there's just a lot of different features here that give you a lot of control over how you're editing and what you're doing with your images. Across the top, you can look at your original image by clicking here. You can also just click anywhere on the image, and then you can zoom in and out, zoom to 100%, fit back on the screen. You have several different ways you can view. You can split your screen in different ways and so on. So you got just a lot of flexibility with the tool. So let's go ahead and start with editing on this one. What I started to do with this, as I said, I've already cropped and done some healing on it. And then the next thing I'm going to do, once I did the cropping and the healing, I actually, well, I'm about to do that. I'm going to apply those changes and save this as a applied image. So we can apply our changes, or we can duplicate the image with all of the changes. But in this case, I'm going to apply, and now I have my image over here, and I'm ready to reach over and grab one of my effects. And in this case, I'm going to choose impression, and there's one called photo painting. And I'm going to go ahead and, well, let me back up here a second. One of the things that I typically do on most of my images is I start with the basic adjustment. And if you go up here across the top, you notice you've got a navigation button, a histogram button, and histogram button over here on the left. And what I do for the first basic adjustment with most of my images is I'll take a look at the histogram up here, and I'll watch it, and I'll go down and set a black point and a white point. You might be used to doing this in other applications, but I'm going to take my slider here on the right and bring my whites all the way over until I start to hit the edge of the image, and then, the edge of the frame. And then over here on the left with my blacks, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring it over to that area, just to where it starts to, before it climbs the wall. I'm going to, on this one, I'm going to drop my exposure a little bit, and I'm going to increase my clarity just a tad. And I could, if I wanted to, maybe bump my saturation just a tiny bit. And that's pretty good. There's our before and there's our after. Now I know I'm going to be painting on this image, so I'm really fine with that basic adjustment. So I'll go ahead and close that up, and I am going to apply those changes. And when I do that, it produces a copy of the image with those changes in it, but nothing over here in the adjustments panel. So the next thing I'm going to do is add an impression effect. So I'm going to go over to impressions. Rather than, I could open it up, and I know it's in pictorial and I could search for it, but I also know the name of it. It's called photo painting. So if I type in the name up here in the search cell, photo painting, and hit the search button, it brings up all of the different effects that have painting in the title, photo painting in the title. So the one I want is this one right here. And I click on it, and as soon as I click on it, it applies the impression, the effect called photo painting. And you notice it's labeled right down here in the bottom on the right. You can see the name of the effect that we're using. The first thing I do with this is look around and see that I notice that there are some little white specks in it, and that means that the paint isn't covering the canvas fully. So there are a couple ways to correct that. I could actually just increase the size of the brush, and those would go away. But what I want to do, because I may want to keep my small brush strokes, I want to go down to texture, and I'm going to open up the texture panel and slide down, and underneath my textures, I have two different buttons here, a solid and original. Right now it's on solid, which means it's a solid canvas behind this image, and it's this color, this cream color. If I switch to original, that's why these little spots are showing that cream color. If I switch to original, it's now filling with the original image instead of that cream color. So if I leave it on solid and I come back up here, I think I want to change my brush to begin with, and I want to change to this. Well, watch what happens. When I change to this brush, it's not effectively covering the canvas. And I could go down, as I said before, I could increase the brush size, but then I've got these giant brush strokes, which is not the result I want. So I'm going to come back down. I'm going to set this to original, and it's going to fill with the colors in the original image. So now when I come up here, I can set my brush stroke as fine and small as I want and get the effect I'm looking for. And that's what I want. I want just this very subtle painterly effect on the image in the building and so on. You have a lot of different variables that you can explore on your own. Just by sliding these, you can see how it affects the image. You can add more paint. If we increase the volume of the paint, it looks like there's chunks of paint on your screen. You can use a larger brush, same thing, you're adding more paint. Lots of different little details here. There's one down here that's causing this effect that we're getting. It's sort of it's a smudge effect, and that's what it's called right here. If we take the smudge effect all the way up, you can see we get this really wacky blurred thing. But if we back it down, then we can start playing with the subtleties of this. And to me, that's where the fun of this app really comes in. You know, really get a chance to explore different looks and create to your creative vision with just a lot of control. So I'm going to go ahead now and well, one last thing here. We also have, notice the texture that we have here. That is a paper texture that we currently have. Oops, sorry, I'm jerking around. You can see the paper number 8 right there that's selected. But you'll have all of these are different textures, and we'll use some later today. These are canvas textures that I really like. And if I select one of these canvases, it actually gives the image the look of a canvas. I actually had a woman argue with me one night at a gallery exhibit about the painting that was on the wall, and I kept trying to explain to her it was a photograph, but she could see the canvas. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and stop on that adjustment. I'm going to just collapse this up. And the next thing that I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to apply those changes by clicking this apply button. And it's going to give me a new project with those changes in it, but no adjustments over here. And this time I'm going to get another impression effect. This one's called painting, and this is one I did a while ago. It's called Painting by Rad. I'm just going to type it in, Painting by Rad. And there it is. And I'm going to select it. And it applies this painterly look to the image. Once again, I can see I've got some canvas showing through, so I'm probably going to want to go down right away into my textures, or into the texture area, and change this to original and see how it filled those little areas. Now you can see where I've got these little, like, I don't know, little artifacts around the painting. If I come up now and choose to reduce the size of my brush, you see how those, I have smaller brush strokes, those have kind of disappeared. Now I could choose to change my brush stroke, and sometimes I explore different ones just by clicking up here, and you can see how it affects the image. I'm just going to go ahead and go with this one right here for today. Sometimes I spend a lot of time picking and choosing, but I like that one. And let's just see what else we have here. I could also come down you have color, lighting, and as I mentioned a minute ago, texture, where you can choose the canvas or paper that it's on. I'm going to go to color for a second. This color tool is remarkable, and this is one you'll find. There's also one in the adjustments called HSL Color Tuning. It looks very similar to this, and you can actually select by mousing over these blocks. You're selecting the various colors in the image, and then you can isolate those and control just those. So let's say I wanted to, there's a little bit of red here in the roof. Let's say I wanted to bring that out. I can go ahead and select that, and then I can come down here. I could change the hue of it, which I don't want to do, but I might increase the saturation, and I could also brighten it. So I don't know if you can see, but see the red right there just got a little bit brighter. I'm not sure I want to do that for this image, but it's remarkable to me that you can isolate these colors that way. This little green strip back here, if I wanted to find that and tone it down, I could darken it by, look at just that strip alone. I could darken it all the way, or I could leave it, you know, somewhere kind of right there. It kind of gives it a grounding element in the image as opposed to being very bright. I could make it a little more yellow by increasing the saturation there. So this color tool is really useful for lots of different things, but that's all I'm going to do with it on this one. Then the lighting, we have the opportunity to adjust the brightness here. We can adjust the contrast a little bit. We can play with our highlights and bring those up, and we can also bring our shadows up. So if we wanted to open up some of this area under the porch, we could brighten the shadows, or if we wanted to drag it down into the negative, you can add a little drama to the image. It kind of works both ways. You also have the option of moving the light position. Now this is such a bright image, I don't know if we'll even see how it's affecting. It's a very subtle effect, but you have, on some images, it's very dramatic. And then you can also do a vignette, which I'm going to save for just a second because we're going to do a vignette in a different tool here. Okay, so let me close this, collapse this. Oops. And the next thing I'm going to do, once again, I am going to apply those changes, and I'm going to work with the new image or the applied image. And this time I'm going to go to simplify, and there is an effect that's called soft features, and I want to grab that. Let's see, am I getting the right one? Oh, wait, I forgot one. There's one called Rustic Farm that I want to use first. And this is Rustic Farm. Now, when I apply Rustic Farm, it changes the entire tone of the image. And this effect, Rustic Farm, is made up of all of these layers over here, all of these adjustments you can see. Now, I can adjust or change this effect in a variety of ways. I could go in and open each adjustment and make fine-tuning adjustments to that adjustment. I could also take this opacity slider on each adjustment, and I could run it back and forth and see how that opacity, there's zero, there's nothing at all being applied, and there's 100% of it being applied. And I can do that with each of these to see how that particular adjustment is affecting the image. One of the things I want to remove from here is this, what do you call it, light leak that's up here. I don't like that. Well, I know that's in a texture. We have a texture here, a texture here, a texture here. And if I go in and I can turn on and off these layers by clicking the eyeball here, and I can see that's not it. But if I go here, there it is. That's the one that has the light leak in it. So I can turn that off. Now I can even delete this entirely, which I'll go ahead and click the trash can, and I've gotten rid of that one entirely. It's no longer in my image. So those are the adjustments that are there. If I wanted to add a HSL color tuning in here, I could, and I could begin, and I could do the, adjust specific colors in the image if I wanted to. What I'm going to do, once again, I'm going to keep this the way it is. I am going to apply this once more, and I'm going to work with the new image. Whoops, what did I do? Oh, I collapsed my adjustments on the right. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is go back out over here to simplify, and I want to pull up one called soft features. So I'm just going to go up here and type it in, soft features, and there it is. And I'm going to apply this to my image, and it's given it an entirely different look. I've kept some of the same tonality and color, but now I have just a really different look applied to this. Again, I could go through and do my sliders here and see how each of these adjustments is going to affect the overall image. But you know, I'm pretty good with it right where it is. Some of these are not doing anything at all, which if we open up curves, oh, it is there. Okay, so it's a very subtle change there. Yeah, you can see it. It's but that's where I'm going to leave this one. I think we've got this really nice painting going on, great tones, a nice color palette, and I'm going to stop with that. So let me go ahead and get rid of these really quickly here. Is there a way to select all of these and delete them all at once, or do I need to do it like this? I've not discovered one, if there is.
There's the mute button.
He's looking for.
If you go to File Close, it should give you a Close All option or Apply to All little checkbox.
Okay.
But that will
Okay,
close
I'll remember that.
everything. Yeah, that'll close every image. So
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the next image here. This is a real simple adjustment, but one that I thought really worked on this image, or did for me. And you know, this is my thing. So what I'm sharing with you is what I really enjoy, and you're going to have something probably very different than what I do. So I'm not doing anything that's like the right way or anything. This is just how I like to edit. This image was one that I shot just this weekend over in Ohio in coal country. It's an abandoned home in an area where coal jobs are no longer in existence. As soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted it to be a black and white image, and I wanted to do something kind of dramatic with it. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is go up and do my basic adjustment. And as I look at my histogram, it's already very close to being where I want it. I'm going to take my blacks and bring them over just a little bit to this edge here, and take the white, same way. Whoop, up the wall is too far. There we go. Something like right about there. And as I look at the image, it's very well exposed. I don't see any blown out highlights. My blacks are pretty good. I've got some really, you know, dark areas here, but that's the way it was. So once I get that, then I can begin to play with the exposure. Again, I like to drop my exposure a little bit, and then I'll bring the clarity up just a little to kind of bring out the details. And that's probably all I'm going to do on this basic adjustment. The next thing I'm going to do is, oh, I almost forgot. I want to make it black and white. To do that, I'm just simply going to drop my saturation down to 0. So now we've got this black and white image. There's our before, and there's our after. I'm going to go ahead and close that up, and I'm going to apply those changes, and I'm going to work with this new applied image here. And the next thing I'm going to do is go to glow, and I want to use airbrush 1. And I'm going to tap on this, and this is going to look really bad. Look at that. It's way over the top, but I love this effect. And what we're going to do, we have lots of different ways that we can temper that effect. We can play with the different, the smudging here and drop it down. We can play with glow and kind of tone it down that way. But the way I'm going to do it is go down and do it globally down here with the opacity slider at the global level. So I'm going to bring that down. And I'm gonna, if I take it all the way down, there's no effect at all. If I take it up just about maybe an 1/8 to a quarter, maybe a third, right in there, that's what I'm looking at. I really like that kind of soft, edgeless effect. It just, I don't know, it appeals to me. So the next thing I want to do is make this a sepia tone. One of the other options that I have up here is to add a color overlay. You can choose it from this button here, or you can go into the adjustments and choose color overlay. When I do that, it gives us this adjustment with the color picker, and I'm going to click here, and I can go in now using this wheel and drag this little tool down into the area, and you can see the color of the image changing as I move through. You know, if I come over here to red, it gets real red, it gets real blue. So I'm here in the yellow, and I'm looking for that sepia tone that I want, something kind of about right there maybe. And then I've got a slider that I can I can darken that a little bit, so I can bring it up until I get it, you know, where I want it. Anyway, something like that. And I'll say okay. And now I have a couple ways that I can adjust that. I can go to my opacity slider here and lift that tone a little bit, and that's pretty good. And I can also go down here. Now, when I do it down here, I'm lifting everything. I'm increasing everything in the whole effect, and that looks pretty good. But it seems to me now to need a little bit of contrast. So I'm going to go in and add a brightness adjustment from up here, and I'm just going to increase my contrast here just a tiny bit. Something like that. And I can also play with my saturation on that sepia tone if I want in this adjustment too. So right about there is what I'm looking for. It's just a fun way of representing an unusual capture from rural America. So that's it. That's all I wanted to show you on that one. So let's go and take a look. Oh, I should have done my global new trick. So let's see, the next one that I want to do, oh, this is a really fun one. I want to show you this. This is, by the way, you notice how I'm adding these images to the screen or to the Topaz. I'm simply going to a folder that I created and I'm finding the image and dragging and dropping it. Normally I'd be working with a raw image, but because it runs a lot faster when we're online, I use the JPEGs for this. So this is a field this winter that I shot, sycamores at sunset. And I really liked sycamores and how light they can be and how they just offer such contrast with their background sometimes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into my cropping tool here on the left, and I'm going to crop this. So I'm going to go up here to my aspect ratio. I'm going to slide down. I want a 16:9 crop because that's a really nice kind of landscape view of things. And I'm going to crop it in from the left, and maybe that's good. And I may want to pull this out a little bit. And I notice we're just a little bit off level. So to level my horizon, I can go in here where the angle slider is, and I can move that very subtly until I get it level. So there we go. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to click done. And now there's my image. So the next thing that I want to do here is do a basic adjustment again. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab my blacks and I'm going to take them over to the edge, and I'm going to take my whites all the way over to the other edge. And in fact, you can see I can't even, it's such a, the exposure is dark enough that I can't even bring it up much more, but I'm going to try and do a little bit of that with my highlights here. And notice what I'm really watching. See this right here? I just blew out that part of the sycamore, and I really don't want to do that because that's what I want to really have that be the focal point of this image. So I'm going to stop about right there. I could lift the exposure on this a little bit to let out some of the light in the rest of the image, the reds that we have. And I don't think I want to play with the saturation, but there again, I want to drop my highlights down a little bit because I've blown out that stretch of there. That little stretch of sycamore is my hottest spot in that image, and I want to keep that because it's better, but it's still, that's better. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to do there. Let me check my notes here. Yep. And so now I'm going to go and do a precision detail. So I'm going to go down and grab my precision detail. And this tool allows you to adjust the detail either in the overall image, in just the shadows, or just the highlights. So I'm going to start out in the highlights, and I'm going to bring my small details up, and I'm watching my image now, and I'm really watching this area right here to see how it's being affected. I want to make sure I don't blow out those areas in the tree. And then I'm going to go to my medium details and bring those up a little bit, and the large details just a little bit. So that's looking pretty good. Now I may want to come down here also and just sharpen things a very small amount. I don't want to go too far and over sharpen, but that looks pretty good. And then I could play with these midtones a little bit in the trees, kind of bring those up, and I could lift the shadows a little bit here. But you know what? I'm going to leave well enough alone. I know where I'm going, and I think that's going to be pretty good. So let me look at my notes here again. Yep, that's it. Okay, so let's close that up. Now we're going to apply those changes over here. And now we have this new image. And I'm going to go grab a impression effect called Dega's Dancers. And it's Dega Dancers 2 is the one I want. I'm going to apply it. And now we've applied this painterly effect to this image. And let's see here. I notice again, I've got some of these little specks occurring. So I'm going to go down to my texture, and I'm going to set it to solid so that it's filling with the image down here, original. And I'm going to see what happens here. I think this is where I want to. Okay, yeah. Then I want to go down to my textures. No, that's not it. Sorry, wrong pew. That's all I want to do here in this one. Let me look here again. Yeah, okay. So the next thing I want to do is add a texture. So I'm going to go in here and add a texture. And the first thing I'm going to do is scroll down. There's a texture that I'm going to use for this, and I apologize for having to look for it here and scroll, but I've yet to find a better way to identify these, and jump to them quickly. But it's this one right here. So this is the texture that I want to apply to this image, and I'm going to change blend modes. And we haven't talked about blend modes today, but if you've used any other apps like Photoshop, or there are even apps on your iPhone that provide instructions through the software on how to combine a texture with the image. So right here, this little pick box is our what did I just say? Just
Blending
kind of
modes.
a brain lapse, blending modes. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is go down. As you notice, as you mouse over each of these blending modes, you can see the result immediately without having to select it. You just mouse over it. I'm going to choose multiply. And when I do, I now get my image looking like this. Now, I can come in here and affect how this looks by, I can increase this opacity, and but I'm going to go down below. I can play with the brightness. Let me see here. I want to affect that a little differently. So let's look at this. Let's back this way down. All right, I'm going to go back up here to my impression, and this is where I need to back off my impression slider a little bit. I want these trees. Do you see how it's changing as I transform that? I want them to still look painterly, but I don't want a lot of heavy paint. So I'm kind of playing with that here. And then I'm jumping back to my texture, and I can play with the opacity of that slider in the multiply blend mode. So now we're there. I can come down now. I can brighten this a little bit. I can adjust my contrast, and a little bit of contrast is going to go a long way here, just a little bit. I think I think the other thing I want to do here is change to this. Yeah, I do. And I'm back in my impression now, and then I want to increase my brush size a little bit. And let's see, paint volume. There we go. Okay, so let's go back down here, close that up, and to our texture. And I'm not sure why I'm getting that blue. That I didn't have that before, and I've done something here that's causing me to get that, but that's okay. We'll work with that. Is it the brightness? Yeah, it's the brightness. There we go. I took the brightness. If I take it up too much, I'm getting that blue in there, which I don't want. I want it to have that darkness. Now, the other thing I want to do here in our texture, back up in impression, I want to make sure that I have this canvas selected. And I want this one, whoops. I want this one right here. Let me see. And once I select a canvas, I can also increase its strength and its size. And that's not the one I want. I want this one. Maybe this one. Yep, that one. Okay, so now let's go back. I'm kind of jumping back and forth here. You can see I'm between impression and texture, and I'm going to come back down now and drop my saturation here because this is way too red, and something like that, and even bring the contrast down. And so now there we go. And then the last thing I'm going to do here with this, I'm going to go in and add an HSL color tuning panel adjustment. And this is where I can go in. I've got a lot of red here, and I'm going to select that red, and I'm going to brighten it a little bit here and also desaturate it. So I'm bringing up the brightness in those trees while I drop that red out. I can also, the same is going to happen here where I can brighten the color. That's way too much. You see how a little tiny bit makes a huge difference. Just a little saturation there, or I mean lightness, and maybe bring that saturation up just a hair. So now there's our image. And I think I'm probably going to stop there. So now we've got our image, and look, you can see the texture of the canvas showing through. And if we want, we can put our signature on this. I've got a PNG file over here with the signature that I had made by Photo Logo. I'll bring that over here and drop it on my image. And then I can simply size this and position it where I want in a place that looks good. And if I wanted to, I could actually drop the opacity of it to allow it to blend in with the image a little bit more. And there is our final result. And very quickly, I just want to show you what this image looks like at full frame. Here, this is a little bit different. This is what I did earlier. It's got a little bit different look to it. But look at this image. I mean, I think it's really fun. You've got this great tone of this sycamore in here, and then these clouds with this great texture from the canvas and the trees. I don't know. I think it's just a remarkable look that Topaz lets us create here. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? Let's go ahead and do, well, this is kind of a fun image right here. Let me go ahead and get rid of these. And going to grab this image here. This is an old car that I photographed in Cuba. And slide this over here again. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is go into our crop tool. Once again, I'm going to go to a 16:9 crop. I'm going to position this in a way that looks pretty good, but I'm going to bring it in even more, something like that. I want to keep these people in it. It looks level, so I'm going to go ahead and say done. And so there's my new image. Next, I'm going to go into and set my white and black points. White can come down just a little bit, and black can come up or down, I guess. And then drop the exposure just a little, and clarity, and a little saturation. Okay, and that's pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do here is, let me think here. Do I want to do it here? So then I want to go and make this black and white. And I'm going to come up here to the mask and select our tool here. Make our brush a little smaller right here. And then I'm going to come over and paint this color back into this car. So I can zoom in on this so I can kind of I'm going to go very quickly here. When you're doing this yourself, you'll be a lot more painstaking about it, but this will give you the idea. And so what we're doing is just adding the color back into the image so that only the car now is going to be color. We could also come over here. Let's make our brush a little smaller, and we could add the color back in the woman over here. Go up to my navigation tool and slide over to these guys. And I don't know what they're wearing, but let's just see. Yeah, red shirt. Why not? And we'll do this. Anyway, again, I'm going very quickly here. You get the idea. And now there's our image. We've colorized the image. Now I got out of the lines a little bit over here, but you could go back and correct that in your mask. But it's just a fun way to change an image to make the colors pop, transform a black and white. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of that one. And
infrared.
Here? Oh,
infrared.
What's that?
Infrared.
Infrared. Okay. Some time ago, I started doing infrared photography, and when I've done one of these in most of my Topaz webinars, this is a great time to explore infrared photography too. We're coming up on spring, at least in some parts of the country, and what's cool about infrared is that everything that is green turns white. This is a wall of green. This is a summer day in Cuba, and this is all greenery. But the chlorophyll and all of that, it causes the infrared, the way the infrared reads that, it's white. Blue sky turns black. Water turns black. So you get these really dramatic black and white images. So the way I've been processing these in Topaz is to come up to my basic adjustment. I make sure that I'm in my histogram up at the top. And again, I'm going to set my white and my black levels. And a big part of this for me is making sure that my blacks are really black and the whites are really white. So you have a really high contrast between those two things. Now, sometimes you have these areas here that are subtly different, parts of that total pattern, but it's pretty cool what you start to get. So a lot of times I like to play with the exposure. Some images require coming up, and some do better if you drop your exposure down a little bit. Play Play with the clarity just a little. Did you see how, watch that clarity adjustment on the water right here. As I pop that, the water just, reflection just really came into clarity. Let's see. Where is my notes? Where are my notes? Here we go. Yeah. Okay, so that is our first adjustment there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to collapse this one. I'll just go ahead and work with it because we're not going to pull anything, are we? Yeah, we might pull something from over here. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and grab another adjustment over here. And this is going to be a reduced noise adjustment. And I do find sometimes on my infrared stuff, it does help to reduce the noise. Now, I could go down here and adjust the individual sliders, but in this case, all of the adjustments that Topaz offers has a preset selection of those sliders. So I'm going to take a look here. Notice I've got heavy noise, light noise, and medium noise. And watch the image as you mouse over, you can see the change. To me, it looks like our best option here, light noise isn't quite enough. Heavy noise is too much. So it looks like me, whoops, I hit light noise. Medium noise looked to me to be the best. And again, I'm just sometimes, blowing it up and looking at it. So I'm going to just go with that right out of the preset without any further adjustment. The next thing I'm going to do is go to my brightness contrast tool, and I'm going to play with this a little bit and watch the image and watch my histogram. I've got a pretty good exposure here, but I've got a little bit of a bright spot here, and I could go in and mask that, but I'm not going to take the time to do that right now. We're getting low on time. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my whites. Actually, I'm not going to take them any higher than that. This histogram looks pretty good, but I am going to try a little tiny contrast adjustment. Now, when I do that, I've reached up and kind of blown out my whites up here. So I'm going to just try and bring that back a little bit. That's too much. There we go. Too much contrast. That's pretty good. The other thing you can do is look here at the different presets that they have for this. See, that's way too much. That's not enough. So I kind of like what I've done better. So that's what I'm going to go with on the brightness contrast. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply those changes here. And now the next thing I want to do is add a simplify effect called image crisp edge. It's over here in simplify. I'm going to go up here and type in crisp edge and see if it comes up. I think it's one word. Hey, I did it. Okay.
Just remember to click on your applied image.
Oh, thank you. Duh. Very good. Let's go back up, find crisp edge. Yeah, so what Chris was talking, or what Heath was talking about, I applied from this image, but you have to actually select this image. It doesn't automatically put you in this image. So that's what I hadn't done. So thank you.
Yeah, if you want to, there's actually an item in the in preferences that will automatically swap for you. We had it defaulted to that, and people were complaining, so we just made it not do anything unless you tell it to. But there is a preference item for the apply button and the duplicate button to automatically switch to the apply or duplicated image. So you can check that if you wanted to. It's not a requirement.
Okay. Image crisp edge. Okay, good. That's good to know. I'll go in and check that. So now, I don't know if you saw that. Let me back up. I'm going to undo that last effect by clicking the undo button down here. There's before the application of this preset, and now watch. That just pops this image. And so you can play around with, these effects a little bit, but I'm happy with that. I'm gonna leave it just the way it is. I might go in later and mask in this little area here to this little highlighted area that's a little bit blown out. Um, but I could take my signature over here, drop it on, size it, and position it, and we're good to go. Okay. And that looks pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead and I'll close these. And let's see what, well, let's do this one as our last one. This actually is an iPhone image, and I just, it's a bridge near my home, and I went out the other night and drove through the bridge and shot this shot, and I like the way the scene is framed by the opening of the bridge, and I love these lines, and it just looked like a really great graphic image with some really cool color. So I wanted to really develop contrast between the black and white here and the color. So I want to transform the whole image to black and white. So I've already, you can see up here, I've already done this one, and these effects are here, but I've turned them off. So I'm going to turn on the black and white, and you can see what I've done. So I just turned it on. I didn't make any adjustments here, and I might have, because I could have maybe darkened this a little. But what I actually did was chose masking. I chose the mask, and I came up here and I painted in this area. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'll just clear that. And so here's my mask. I'm gonna go ahead and tap right here, and I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna paint, whoops, I always do this. There we go. I'm gonna paint in the color. And you know,
we always get this question when we come into masking. Why are you painting with black? What's the difference between the black and white when you're masking?
why am I painting with black?
Like if you look at your mask
That's a
color.
good question.
Yep.
I guess I could have done this, inverted it, and done this.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. No, but then I'm painting out the color.
Yeah, you weren't doing anything wrong. I was just saying people always ask
Yeah,
that question when we show masking, like, why are you painting with white?
yeah.
Why would you do white or why would you do black when you're masking?
The way to think about it, all the black or white, all you're doing is either wiping away the top layer to reveal the back layer, or you're painting on the top layer over the back layer. I don't know if that makes sense, but right now we have an image here. We want to reveal the color under this image. So to do that, I'm gonna, let's see, I think I need to do that. Yeah. So I'm dropping my transparency down, and it's painting it in black. And I'm gonna paint this in really quickly. You're gonna take a lot more time on your great images than I'm doing now because I'm going fast. And what happens if you color outside the lines? Well, I'm gonna go over here and grab the slider, move it all the way to the other end, and come in here and erase that boo-boo.
Yeah, and the thought process with this is, of course, you apply to black and white. So everywhere that white is, you're seeing that black and white adjustment shown. Everywhere that black is, you're hiding that adjustment. So the thought process with painting masks is that black conceals and white reveals. So right now, it's a little bit backwards because you're turning it black and white, but you're using this white to reveal the bridge, and you're using the black to conceal that black and white on the colored portion. This is a really great effect.
Thanks. So once we do this, I can close that up, and then I'm going to go to a precision contrast, and then here's what I've done here to darken these edges. I used micro, low, and medium, and then I've dropped my shadows down and my highlights so that I got this in a nice exposure. Now I notice right here, it looks like I must have hit in my mask, this is that area that I see blue here, so I don't know what I did, but that's it. That's just a great way to colorize an image or to separate out something. And you can do this masking on every one of the adjustments, whether it's color or contrast or any of the effects. It's a really powerful way to work with your images.
Again, Rad mentioned his newsletter. If you want to sign up for that, he's got some great tips. He does some great webinars of his own, specifically for iPhoneography, cell phone photography, infrared, all sorts of subjects I think you cover, Rad. You can follow him and sign up for that at his website. It's raddrewphotography.com. You can also visit his Facebook page. That's facebook.com/raddrewphotography. And again, questions that y'all haven't gotten to that you have for him, feel free to shoot him a message on there. I know he loves talking to the people that view these webinars and his webinars. It's really great at getting back to people who have questions. So if you have any questions for us, you can always contact us at webinars@topazlabs.com, and you can sign up for upcoming webinars. I know we've got one with Joel Wolfson coming up next week at topazlabs.com/webinars. Guys, thank you so much. Rad, thank you so much. We almost maxed out. I think we were 4 seats short of our limit today. So
That's great.
yeah, it's fantastic. We went through a lot. Again, guys, feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions. And I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are in the world. Thanks again, Rad.
Thanks, Heath. Thanks, everyone.